Good evening, students. So today we have we are going to start with a new topic, that is how you are going to identify the customer requirement with related to your network designing, right? So before starting our new topic, see what we have covered in our last session, right? So in last session we have done with our network design methodology, or we can also call it as network uh, life cycle in terms of PPDIOO model, right? Like you are already seen SDLC, software development life cycle, right? So likewise there is an one in network design life cycle model is also there, which we can call it as PPDIOO. That means prepare, plan, design, implement, optimize and operations, right? So all these phases also one by one we have covered in our last session. Then what are the different benefits of this particular life cycle with respect to our network design? So whatever is your network is, a personal network is, organizational network is, right? So how this particular PPDIOO model can help to design on what are its benefits, right? That also we have discussed in our last session. So today we will having some these type of the content. The first one, what is the customer requirements, how to identify it, right? Then what is the scope, how to define of particular this networking design project, right? Then from the customer point of view, how the initial requirements for network design, how to extract that from the customer, right? By asking some questions, by showing some network design, right? So how it can be useful, so that also we will see. Then there is an one, can call it as one of the document, request for proposal or request for information. So that also we will see how that particular documentation can be prepared, right? And lastly we will see there are different phases in which the network design network requirements can be finding out from the customers, right? So that all the phases also we will discuss with the sum each of the phases. We am giving you one examples, right? That will be easy to know more about that particular phases of that particular network requirements, right? So let's start with the session. So uh, first of all we'll see how why these particular customer requirements is needed for any kind of the designing, right? So you already seen, you already using that software development life cycle, also the SRS document, right? The software requirement specification you are preparing, right? In that also you are able to collect some functional and non-functional requirements that will be needed for that particular software, right? So with respect to the similarity of that particular concept in network design, also we are going to take some of the requirements from the customer, right? With some format, with some approach, with some phases, we need to discuss it in this particular session, right? So first of all we will see how this assessing the scope of a network design project. That means for example in your BE project also you have defined one project scope in the last semester itself, right? So that means up to what level you are going to implement your project is, right? That you need to first of all define, right? So likewise in this particular network design also we need to first of all target, right? We need to define a scope up to which level I wanted to design my network, right? And which way I need to design my particular network, right? So in network design also, for example in this particular table also I have given some of the examples. For example, the first one is the entire network, right? So in order to design a network, right, so you need to find out all first of all find out, so whether you need to design a entire network newly, right, or you need to work upon some existing network, right? So it will be help to solve this particular your queries from the network architect level, right? So how you are able to find out which what is the scope of that particular design, right? obviously it is in terms of your what customer requirements only, right? So this is first of all one example of your scope of the design. Next one is what your network layer, right? So in network layer also, for example, if any organization is wanted to update their existing network, right? For example, they need to upgrade their IP addressing plan, right? They need to add some for example the what we can call subnetting, they need to, right? Or for example they need to add some VLANs, some security, right? In so we can also define the scope in terms of that particular network design, right, at network layer itself. So this is one of the example. Again the third example I am giving here, for example at the level of data link layer, right? For example, if in cabling or for example there is any Wi-Fi or some what we can call as some MAC addresses and all, right, that you need to change, or that you need to replace some of the devices, right? Switch you need to replace, and all that things you need to upgrade it, right? So at that level also you need to think upon network scope of the network, right? So it will obviously depends upon the customer's requirement, right? What exactly the customer wants, and what at what level you need to design that particular network of for the organization, right? So this is nothing but you need to first of all find out the scope of your network designing, right? So these are the some examples I have given here, whether you need to design entire network or you need to upgrade the existing network, right? At network layer you need to do some changes. For example, routing algorithm you need to change. For example, IP addressing you need to change. You need to add some security to for example VLANs you need to add, firewall you need to add, right? Then data link layer also you need to do some changes, right? So all these things with respect to the scope of the your network designing, right? Then we will move towards how then this particular we can call it as the initial requirements you need to extract, right? So there is and when some procedure is there, right? There is and some standard is there, right, from which you need to extract that particular initial requirement from the customer itself, right? And that particular document, that initial requirements document, that is nothing but we can call it as an RFP, or we can call it as RFI. That is nothing but request for proposal, request for information, right? In SDLC we can call it as SRS document, right? Software required specification, right? So here in network design we will call it as request for proposal, RFP, or we can call it as a request for information also, right? So these two terms may be asked in your examination. For example, write a short note on RFP or write a short note on RFI, right? So or one and the same thing, right? We can sometime we can call it as R request for proposal RFP, some call it as request for information RFI, right? So that you need to know, right? So if you see in this particular diagram itself, right, this particular RFP, right, if you see all these steps, right, how this particular requirement can be extracted from the customer, right? So in terms of what, in terms of RFP or RFI, right, in second step what you query the customer for a verbal description of the initial requirement, right? So you need to ask some we can call it as the questionnaires, right? FAQs we can call it as, to the customers, right? For example, which type of the network design you want, right? You wanted to upgrade existing network or not, you wanted to some upgradation in internet working devices or what, right? You wanted to change some LAN cables or what, right? So all these type of the questionnaires you can ask to the customers, and you need to find out some requirements, right, in the step 2, right? While in step 3, right, you need to draft one document, right, that describes all these particular design requirements which we are getting from the customer, right? So who is going to do all these things? Only the, we can call it a network designer or architect is doing all these things, right? Then in step 4, in step 7, we need to verify again this design requirement with the customer, right, and obtain the customer approval also, right. You need to cross verify it again with the customer. Why? Because sometimes what happen, there is some with some miscommunication, misunderstandings, right. So wrong design maybe you can design, right. So customer then maybe refused. So whatever the requirement I have given, it's not matches with the whatever the output the network designer gives, right. So that what you need to do, you need to again validate or verify that particular design requirement with the customer also, and you need to get it approved from customer itself, right. And then revise that document necessary to eliminate errors and omission, right. You need to read it out, you need to get the sign from the customers and all that things, right, in order to eliminate some if some errors it having, right. So this is one of the we can call it as a procedure, right, in order to get the initial requirements, right. Then we move towards next about the gathering, how the network requirements can be gathered, right. So this particular question is asked in the examination for 10 marks, right. So in what ways you are going to gather the data for your network design requirements, right. This is a 10 marks question, may be asked in the examination, right. So for that purpose you need to first of all draw this particular diagram, right. I will explain this one by one with some examples, right. So here if you see in this particular diagram, right, so we will first of all explain all this part, right. Then I will move towards this particular diagram, so how it will be correlated with this particular we can call it as gathering network requirements, right. So for that, first of all what you need to see, first point we will see that identify network application and network services, right. It will be helpful in designing any kind of the network, right. So in this example, in this particular table you will see there are some application type here, right. The emails, groupwares, web browsing, video on demand, databases is there, the customer support application, right. All these are nothing but a sum of the application type, right. And with the help of this particular application type, some of the applications which are used by the some of the organization, right. For example, if the application type is email, right, then in organization you also know some Outlook application they are using for intra networking, right, so to communication, right. And here also I am giving here the level of importance, right. So how this particular application is important with respect to the organization, right. It is also we are taking all these things from the customer, right. Just you must know, right, we all this information we need to take it customer only, okay, by asking some of the questions, right. Then groupware. So here obviously in this particular enterprise network design we are using all this Cisco's thing, right. So here I am also listing out here the application with respect to the Cisco most of the time. So here for groupware I am using here Cisco Unified Meeting Place, that is one meeting platform is there, right, which is also very important with respect to the organization, right. Then video on demand, Cisco digital media system is there, so that is nothing but one of the critical application for that particular organization, right. Obviously database is very important with respect to any of the organization, right. So for databases they are using Oracle application, which is also a critical one. All the backend will be handled by this Oracle. Then customer support application, the custom applications the organization using, that is also one of the critical, right. So here also I am giving some of the comments, right. So for example, Oracle all data storage is based on Oracle, right. For example, Cisco meeting place, so need to be able to share presentation application during remote meeting. For example, in this pandemic area it will be very much important, this particular Cisco unified place for that particular organization, right. So you need to find out the all the applications, application types, their level of importance, whether it will be important, whether it will be critical, right, whether it will be not important. You need to find out all the applications right, from the customer itself, and accordingly you need to plan your network design part, right, with the help of that PPDIOO model, which we are covered in our last lecture, right. Along with that, this particular plan application, you need to think upon there are a different plan network services as well, right. So for example, here I am listing out some of the services and how it will be helpful for any kind of the organization, that also you need to see, right. For example, here some XYZ organization is there, right, and they are planning some of the infrastructure based services, right. They are required some infrastructure based services, right. And for example, I am listing out here first service is security, right. So how the security will be important to any kind of the organization is, first of all, you need to you need to integrate the firewall, for example, right. You need to check the antivirus and all that things. You need to check the IDS and IPS systems, right. You need to check the ACLs, right. Then authentication and authorization of the users, right. All these kind of the thing which will be helpful in your security services part, right. So that is also one of the important. Then QoS parameters, right. QoS services, that is quality of services. Obviously it is more which what we can important or critical service which will be required for any kind of the organization. So without any we can call it as disturbance, all the data should be goes to over the internet, right. So with the help of that, you need to again organization require the QoS service. Then the third one is, if you see the network management, right, whatever the network you are going to design, right, that particular thing also you need to manage with the help of some applications, right. That is also one of the important for that particular organization. Then high availability, right. This is also we can call it as a service, we can call, right. For that high availability, you need to provide the redundant paths between internetworking devices and all that things to eliminate the point of the failure, right. Then IP multicast, right. Then voice, then mobility, right. All these are nothing but the different kind of the services that also you need to think upon while taking the requirement from the customers, right. Then after that we will come to this our second point, that is define organizational goals, right. So if with respect to organization goal, how you are going to gather the network requirements, right. So we have already seen here network applications, we have seen here different network services with the help of examples. Now we will move toward the second model, that is organizational goals, right. So here also I am listing out some of the organizational goals, right. And you need to check whether the particular organizational goals are with the help of that particular customer itself, right. So for example, I am listing out here increase first the organization is what, to increase the competitiveness, right. So what you need to do is you need to compare the existing organization with the sum of the different organizational network, right. For example, here I am giving the corporation Y and the corporation Z, right, which are nothing but two competitors of that particular existing organization, right. And in terms of what they are better, right, that you need to find out. So here in comment also I have written they are better products, they are reduced cost, right. But in terms of the network, you need to find out, right, how they are going to use the network applications and network services that will be enable them to increase the product better products and reducing the cost also, right. So you need to compare the existing organization with respect to the competitors as well, right. So next point is the reduced cost. For example, it is nothing but the organizational goal, for example, right. Then how this can be reduce cost with the help of internet networking devices, you can call it as in terms of your network requirement, you can call it as, right. And how you can easily access to that particular application with at minimum cost, right. Then how we can easily transfer your data without with the less cost, right. So that also you need to think upon, right. How you for example, you can use the cloud services, right? So with the help of cloud you can reduce your infrastructure cost, right? So that is also one of the goal of that particular organization. Okay, then the third one is improve the customer support, right? So how customer support can be improved, right? Obviously if you have some of the application which will be we can call it as the just we can see we are seen in that particular Cisco meeting app, right? So through that also if you are able to use that particular service, right? If you are giving some technical supports uh, in this particular can call it as to the customers, right? Then this is also one of the goal. Then add new customer services, right? This can be a goal of that particular organization, right? So you need to think upon what are the different organization goals are there, right? And whether that particular goal can be satisfied with the help of that our networking designing, right? That you need to look upon, right? So that is nothing but some of the organizational goal is there, right? So the I'm giving you for every model some of the live examples, right? So that you can correlate with it and you can write it in examination as well, right? So next we will see this third module, that is an define and check organizational constraints, right? So whenever I am telling you about the constraints, right? So first of all first constraint if we talk about, that is budget, right? For any kind of the organization, right? There is an one yearly budget is there, right? That must be a sanction from that authorities, right? Higher authorities. In our college also there is an one budget, right? In that budget also one to two sections are there, in which the network design cost is there, network maintenance cost is there, right? IT infrastructure cost is there, right? So as I am the college IT maintenance in charge, so I know how this particular budget can be sanctioned, how it will be give to us, and how we are going to able to maintain it. So in our college also this particular internal budget of this particular networking, right? So we are handling this at college level itself, right? So there is an low maintenance, right? Only the UPS and all that things whatever we have purchased, so, right? So in that we have an support, right, from the industry only, right? So in this particular organizational budget also you need to consider, because whenever you are designing any kind of the network for organization, right, you need to also think upon the budget of their organization which having for that particular networking design, right? Otherwise what happen, there is an requirement of the switches and you are using everywhere the routers, right? So obviously the cost will be increased, right? And it is an out of the budget thing, right? Unnecessary you are using, so you are a bad network architect, right? So you need to also think upon the budget, right? How this particular budget can be utilized efficiently with respect to the network design, right? So you need to ask this some budget related questions to the customers as well, right? Then personal, right? For example, there are some what are the operating systems are there, right? Some application maintenance are there, right? All these things you need to check whether the whoever the IT maintenance is handling, right? That is qualified or not, right? All this with respect to handling all these things, network related things, right? That also you need to think upon. Then policies, right? Obviously every organization having some policies, right? Before purchasing or before ordering you need to give the some quotations, right? You need to find out some comparative analysis of that particular quotations, then whichever is minimum that you need to select, right? Then you need to order, then the purchase order that you need to keep, then the things you need to purchase, right? Then it should be go to the account and TDS should be deducted for that particular thing, right? And all these things are nothing but the policies, right? That also you need to check, or that also you need to follow, you need to maintain, right? Then the last one is your the one, right? For each and every activity whatever you are doing, right? That having some of the schedule, right? For example, for any kind of the organizational, right, for example, networking devices must be changed from about after the 6 years or 5 years, right? For example, any application they are going to plan in future, right? So whether the existing infrastructure is capable to handling that particular new applications or not, right? That also you need to take upon, right? That also you need to consider while we can talk about this particular organizational constraints, right? Then we will move towards this our fourth, that is your to define the technical goals, right? How this technical goal can be achieved, right? So what comes under this particular technical goals, right? If you see in this particular table also, right, in with respect to network, right, some of the QoS parameters also responsible in order to achieve these particular technical goals, right? For example, if you think upon the performances, right? So whether your network design is giving you the out of marks or out of expectation performance or not, right? That you need to check, right? Then what about the security of the current infrastructure network infrastructure whatever you are having, right? Whether there is an infrastructure level security is there, whether the information level security you are having in that particular organization, right? That also you need to think upon, right? You need to give the importance with respect to the customer or organization point of view also, right? Then availability, obviously it's and having a greater importance, right? 365 days to 24 by 7 that must be enabled, right? Network infrastructure must be active, right? Then it having a greater importance, right? Then adaptability to the new technology, that is nothing but the future scope, whether for any new kind of the things, whether the existing infrastructure is can be used for that or not, right? That also you need to think upon, that is nothing but the future scope, right? The scalability, it also having the importance same as with respect to the availability. For example, you need to scale down or scale up some of the internet networking devices, right? So whether your network is scalable or not, right? That you need to find out, right? Then the manageability, right? So according to that you need to find out what are the technical goals I am organization having, and what are the with respect to the importance of that technical goal which are satisfying with respect to the organization. And it will be we can call it a difference in the technical goals, organization goals with respect to organization, right? Customer to customer it will be depends, right? So this is a generic example what I am giving here for each and every aspect of the we can call it as the network design requirements, right? Then we will move next to this particular our fifth module, that is nothing but define and check, we can call it as an technical constraints, right? So whenever I am calling technical constraints, right, some of the technical constraints in terms of the equipments, for example here existing equipment, whether the existence equipment is capable enough to handle a new load in network design, right? So whether that particular cabling part is good or not, right? So if it is good, whether it can be replaced coaxial cable, for example with the twisted pair to get a better performance to, or for example instead of coaxial cable, instead of twisted pair cable, can we use fiber optic cable to enhance our networking speed and uplink to the core infrastructure or not? That also you need to be think upon, right? So then bandwidth availability, right? Obviously whether the bandwidth is sufficient or not to that particular organization you need to think upon, or whether in existing plan itself you can suggest them and a better bandwidth capabilities, right? Then it will to provide a better services to that organization also, right? Then application compatibility, right? Whether already whatever the applications are there, right? So whether the next versions of that particular applications can you suggest them, right? Whether alternatives of the existing application which having a good performance in network by considering the network parameters, that also you need to think upon, right? So for example, here I am giving IPv6 based application. If you are having, right, whether the new equipment can support IPv6, because if in future if you are using IPv6 addressing scheme, so that particular network equipment also must having that enablement, right? So that also you need to be think upon. So it's all about your the technical constraints. We can give the examples here with respect to the technical constraints, right? Then after the technical requirements, right, then lastly we are talking about here the document this particular the collected information, right? So in this particular diagram, if you see, I have explained each and every module here now. So now if you see here the arrows from the organization to each of the these particular models, right? The organization to first model, organization to second model, this third model, fourth model, fifth model, right? And from each and every model, right, there is an one arrow which comes towards this particular document the collected information, right? So this is nothing but the gathering your network requirements, right? Now we will see how this particular information can be collected in this particular document, in this particular document, right? In our next lecture, right? But you will see if by considering this, right, all these we can call it as network application, network services, organizational goal, technical goals, organization constraints and technical constraints, right? All these which giving you all the network requirements which will be required for networking any kind of the network, right? Whether it will be personal network, whether it will be your organizational network, right? So all your networking requirements will be gathered, will be taken together to form at one which can call it RFP, right? Or we can also call it as your RFI, right? So it will be helpful for network architect or network designer to in order to gather the requirement from the customers, right? So this is all about today. So what we are seeing today is to identifying the customer requirements, right? What are the different scopes, right? In terms of the whole network you need to change, you need to update only at the network layer, you need to work upon only data link layer and all that things. How the scope of the network design you need to see, right? That we will seen today. Then how the initial requirements can be checked, right? How the initial requirement can be uh, extracted, right? Then what is mean by RFP, RFI, right? How the data can be collected in terms of this particular RFP and RFI that we are seeing. And lastly we are seeing the gathering how the network requirements can be gathered with respect to that particular diagram. In that organizational goals, that business application services you need to find upon, then the technical goals and technical constraints you need to work upon, right? All these things you need to gather in terms of that particular RFP and in terms of RFI, right? So then there's some test is there, right? So 3 to 4 questions are there in this particular test. For 3 minutes you have, the test is mandatory for all. So ma'am can send a link from in the chat box, right? So you need to give this test, right? So that's it for today. Okay, thank you for joining.